Pressure.
Oh, Sam, how are you, man?
I'm good. How you
We
doing, Tim?
Good. We
You
finally
good?
hooked this up
Yeah, that's good.
with
It's,
the tragic life and busy schedules of musicians.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's hard. I think just generally when you're freelance, it's just difficult running because you don't have a scheduled day. Not like someone who's doing a 9 to 5 or something where there's a cut-off period. You know where your free time always is, and there's
Yeah,
none of that. It's just 24/7, which
it
is
is. Yeah,
not good for anyone. It's just not a healthy way to live.
yeah. I know it's not, but I think we've I think that's maybe that's the consequence of doing something that you love.
Yep. Yeah.
That you do.
Unfortunately.
That's. I think that's the sacrifice that you make. Is that the weekends, free time, can potentially just be taken away from you,
Yeah. I
particularly
think
weekends.
I think that's also one of the hardest things that I'm actually working on at the moment is for next year trying to rebalance my life as well because
Mm.
this year there hasn't been any free time, especially in the last couple of months. Yeah, it's just which is not healthy. It's not good. So
No.
um,
So I know you recently got married. So that
yeah,
what does your wife do? Is she a musician as well? Does
she's a
she?
cellist. Yeah, she's a cellist. She runs a really
Okay.
successful quartet called Halo Strings. They're doing really
Okay.
well. They were playing for Petit Philippe recently. Many other kind of like luxury brands and stuff like that. She's also a session player. She's involved in this project called the Orchestral Quality Project, which is touring
Okay.
at the moment in and out of everywhere. They were in Dubai recently. So yeah, she's very talented. Um,
So she gets the drill. She knows what's the score is.
yeah, yeah, both of us are working 24/7.
Yeah.
Just like, uh, yeah,
I'm
it's all
going to
good.
ask about kids.
No kids. Yeah, it's scary to think because I think that's what I'm talking about next year, just like rebalancing because I just don't
Mm.
think we have time for anything at the moment, which is not healthy. So that's something we need to rebalance just our lives a little bit first before we even think about that. I think,
Mm.
yeah.
So what's going on? What's the year look like?
The one that we've just been through,
The one that we just had.
nearly
Yeah.
finished.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a. I'm trying to think back. It's one of those things, those questions where you think back and you're like, "Gosh, it's been a blur." And very, very lucky to have been very busy this year, but with many projects. One consistent project that I've been working on with a friend called Andy Wilder, who's a drummer, is this thing called LDN Features, which is a house band.
Hmm.
It's a studio band, kind of like bringing back this idea of having a Motown house band, kind of where we have
Hmm.
different solo artists come in and record live, and that's been all presented, all done via video on YouTube. So record the sessions in one take with a guest artist every release one every month. So that's been really a lot of work in terms of the music business side of that, in terms of creating the connections with distributors for the videos and doing all the admin and working with SE Electronics, who's the microphone
Hmm.
company, and just growing that and making that like a really good connection and network for the people who are involved. So that's always constantly running in the background, and that takes up a lot of my time. And it's a project of passion. Me and Andy are doing it to a showcase how good the collective is at just doing everything in one take. There's no edits,
Hmm.
and then also be building a bigger network. So there's that. I was very lucky to dep on some gigs for Jack Savaretti this year, which was
Nice.
cool. Um, Covering for Sam Davis, which is cool. And then there was a tour with Nick Hayward from Haircut 100. So doing
Yeah.
Nick's solo stuff, which was great. Depped on some gigs with Gareth Gates. Um, yeah, and then playing for some amazing up and coming artists, Helena May, one of them, Marlin, Drew Thomas, Um, lots of there's probably some people I've forgotten. There's lots of the little things that I like to get involved with, and then the corporate side and the
Yeah.
weddings as well, running in the background, doing lots of function gigs and stuff. There's probably some other things I've forgotten, but yeah. So that's what I meant. Looking back, there's
Yeah.
it's a big blur of lots of
I know. And
things.
as you get older, you're like, you think, did that happen? Was that this year? Was that last year? I know that was 2019. I did that.
Yeah,
Fucking
yeah,
hell.
and it goes quicker. I think you're definitely the older you get, it's scarier. The quicker
Yeah.
things go, and then obviously a big one, getting married this year as well. That was big planning. It was an amazing day, but it was a lot to get to that, to plan it and make it everything happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
That's cool. So
yeah,
how
man.
did you get started in music? What was your in?
My into music was, I remember being at high school, and there was like the final years, the 3 years above me, I think it was something like that, year 11 or something, or 10, they had a covers band, and I saw them play it. I think it was at assembly or something crazy like that, and I was like,
Mm.
I want to play that instrument. I don't know what it is, and it was a bass.
Yeah.
And then so I'm still friends with the bass player actually,
Oh, nice.
and then it was just obsession. It was like obsessive. As soon as I begged my parents to get one, it was just 6 hours every day practicing, learning songs, not knowing what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
but just figuring out. I remember like trying to learn Nickelback, Rage Against the Machine, all these things that that are like really cliche, and yeah, all those. And then I found jazz. I
Mm.
found via Marcus Miller, Miles Davis, and then Jaco Pastorius, and then it became really obsessive. Like, how does that work? How does just so basically a lot of my working the instrument out was at home on my own via books as
Yeah.
well. I used to buy all these books and work through them from the front page to the back page. And then so it got to the point where going to university, what I really wanted to do was music. But because I was self-taught from home, didn't have, GCSE in music or anything like that. And then also my parents were really against me doing an arts degree.
Mm.
So they were like, look, if we're going to help you to go to university and pay for you to go to university, we want you to get at least something useful. So like a bachelor's in science or something. So it was a
Okay.
bit of a struggling point, and I chose a halfway house. I chose music tech. So I went to university and did in University of Hertfordshire music technology. But all through that university 3 years, I was, the the core thing was still like, I just want to play. That's what I want to do.
Mm.
So I was practicing every day, trying to find the musicians at the university, forming bands, trying to learn how to sight read. That was, not having a teacher or anything, like that was a big thing. That was a long process, just
Yeah.
figuring out how that all works. And then on the side, here and there, when I could I got some private lessons here and there. But yeah, a lot of my education was just, at the same time as university, going out to jam nights in London, and just getting my ass kicked into shape.
Yeah.
And like then figuring things out on my own, sort of, I feel like that's given me a kind of unique style and voicing on the instrument, maybe. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of gaps in the foundations of my learning and stuff like that. So it's a very yeah, learn on the streets, I guess.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I think
yeah,
that's. I was gonna say, I think that's. I mean, that's the same way that I learned. I got
cool.
records. I got the guitar. I just started putting Oasis records on and just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
With ad hoc private lessons here and there. And it wasn't until I went to college that I started to really study and learn. But I don't know. Do you teach?
So I teach like one or two students, but it's not something I really feel confident in doing, because I haven't been given that syllabus. I wasn't taught via a syllabus. I taught myself, and I feel like, looking back on the way I taught myself, was very skipping forward and backwards over things, when it would have been maybe better to have a linear method, getting one thing done and then the second thing done. For me, it was very much like, oh, okay, this is jazz, all right, so hang on, how do we work back from these arpeggios? Oh, okay, I've got those. Okay, let's go back forward to trying this song. Oh, hang on, haven't got the idea of how to solo over those. Let's go back to study Howard. Let's read up about this, get a book about it. Okay, let's go forward and try this again. And same with sight reading, like just jumping into. I remember jumping into a big band gig, and when I was started university, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, I thought I could kind of sight read. No, I can't. Going back, getting scores at home, just practicing, stuff like that. Yeah, very backwards and forward, rather than having maybe, I don't know, like a linear, okay, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, kind of style. So that's why I don't really teach that much.
Yeah. So no, I mean, what I was going to say is that a lot of students don't even fucking listen to music.
That's scary.
I had a kid that he wants to do his grades, and I don't really do grades because I just find them really stale and really just difficult. And but his parents are insisting. I was like, all right, okay, fair enough. I said, but what I want you to do is, I wrote down 3 albums. I said, I want you to go away and just want you to listen to these 3 albums over the week. He takes the bus into school, said, use a half-hour bus ride, so you can listen to maybe an album there and an album back, depending on what we got.
Yeah.
And I'd given him the first Van Halen record.
Cool.
What's the Story, Morning Glory, and I think Texas Flood by Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Okay.
I said, just listen to those 3. And just kind of, and he came in 2 weeks later. I said, did you listen to those albums? He said, yeah. I was like, what do you think? He was like, it's all right. I was like, okay. So did you listen to Eruption? He's like, well, I said, and I put it on. I was like, are you not hearing that?
Is that not
how
making
is that
you
a guitar?
Connects with anything? Yeah.
Maybe I just haven't found the right thing for him. But
it's strange because it does bring.
It's just not listening to music. It's just
it brings me back those memories when I first came across Stanley Clarke, or Marcus Miller is one of my biggest heroes. And I was just obsessed. And I think if you don't, and that's something I think, unfortunately, as I've got older, I've lost by doing maybe too many gigs. You kind of I don't know about you, but on the way home from a gig, the last thing you want to do is listen to music, which is really sad. It's really.
It used to be all the way there. You do the gig, and then you're listening all the way back. But now I'm just like, I need a fucking break.
Yeah. Which is really
it's podcast or silence on the way home.
Yeah, same. But you need to have that connection. You need to have. That's what I think makes people obsessive about maybe practicing for 6 hours or something like that, is having that a spark or connection with the music. And I mean, that's also another reason why I find teaching difficult, because if you don't have those students that have that spark or passion, then it's something
it's hard work.
Yeah, it's hard.
But it's but I find I've always really enjoyed teaching, and I think it's good that even if you get 1 out of 10 that just loves it and they latch onto it, it's like, okay, that's worth it.
Yeah, I can. But
then I kind of see the rest of it, the other 9, as kind of a challenge. It's like, all right, okay, so now I'm going to have to find you something that you're really going to latch onto.
But that probably makes you a good teacher, because you're having the practice and developing the skills of how to develop that spark for that person, and that's something I don't have. And that's, I think, something that looking back at the teachers I had, like at university or school and stuff like that, the best ones were the ones that really got you interested in a subject that you first off had no passion for. And I've always had a real passion for physics and stuff like that, and it was because of teachers I had at school. So that's what develops, I think, that interest, having a good teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my daughter about it because she's just started she's like year 8 in high school, and she was talking about physics and maths, and same, like I've got a real penchant for physics and maths, particularly like astronomy.
Cool.
And I said to her, she said, I just don't like my maths teacher. And I was like, do you know what? I think being a maths teacher, out of all the subjects, is probably the hardest one to teach, because it is so, well, like when you start to get into the nuts and bolts of it, and the same with physics, it's fucking fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's a real slog to get to the stuff that's interesting.
It's a sharp learning curve. It's a really sharp learning curve to get to that. And I think that's the same with some genres of music. A lot of people might, and I could be wrong saying this, a lot of people might get into rock because it's a quick and easy slope, and then it's a really harsh learning curve. Especially if you're a guitar instrument. But to jump into something like jazz or classical with a fretted instrument is just too much of a learning curve to start off with, so no one really wants to learn it, or get an interest into it. I don't know.
I mean, I think I've always struggled with jazz, and the reason I think I always approached it from I have to play jazz because it's a thing that I don't really play very often. And it wasn't until I actually just started listening to it that it then just became so much easier to play.
I was literally about to say that. I don't consider myself a great jazz player at all, but I love playing jazz, and I never find it a chore. And like I said, I'm not a good jazz player, but it's because I just love listening to jazz. I love listening to Chet Baker. I love listening to all these musicians playing on records. And therefore, fine, I might not know all the theory of it, but I'm never I don't have this big fear that I've seen a lot of other musicians have when they approach it, or they're like, oh, it's a chore to learn it or something. And I think that's it. You've hit the nail on the head. If you listen to something, you build that vocabulary anyway, in the back of your head, and it's a bit easier to approach. So, and it's the same, I think I have a bit of a deficit with some rock music. I haven't got that big background catalogue of listening to it in the car and stuff. So, I can play rock, it's fine, but I don't have that approach, that technique with it, the understanding of distortion with the bass. And although I've experimented a lot, the best way to get that tone or those certain particular feels that if you've listened to in the background all the time, you've just got that idea and concept or what it should sound like. That's it, isn't it? But it goes back to what you connect with again, doesn't it? If you connect with,
absolutely.
if you connect with it, then it'll I think it comes a bit
becomes
easier.
Easy.
Yeah,
it's easy. Yeah, I mean, I've got tonight I'm doing a gig for an Oasis tribute, and
awesome.
I haven't played with these guys for 5 years, 6 years,
right?
But because I was obsessed with them from the age of 16 to 19, those first 2 albums are just ingrained in my head in terms of just listening, the structure, the feel, the everything. And so when I picked it up after 5 years, I think I went through them once. I was like, yeah, I could gig that now.
Yeah. Oh,
that's it. It's just there in my head. It's like, what is that? Is that a D or is that a C? That's a D. Okay, right, fine. Yeah. No, we're okay.
For me, that would be a lot of learning. Even, because I haven't got that in the I haven't had that in the background playing all the time, or something that I've listened to all the time. So, that's it. That's totally it.
Yeah. So we touched on practicing. 6 hours of practicing. What does practicing look like these days?
Practicing looks like maybe 1 hour a day, and it's all double bass stuff at the moment. Well, I'm on the instrument a lot in terms of learning songs on the electric bass, but the only practicing I do now, unfortunately, I wish there was more time to do practicing, is double bass stuff, because I'm so far behind with that in terms of it's only been an instrument that I've been playing for maybe 7 years now or something, not like the bass guitar. And it's an instrument that I'm discovering really you need to have played it since you were probably like 8 or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the stuff I do. And a lot of that is going through Ray Brown's, at the moment, Ray Brown's bass method book.
Mm-hmm.
So going through that. There's a great course online that I'm doing when I have time called Discover Double Bass. So there's one with John Goldsby that I'm doing at the moment. And that's what practicing looks like at the moment. And I consider that, and what I mean by practicing, I consider practicing like doing some warm-ups, then going through the Ray Brown arpeggios, for example, working through those, figuring out the fingerings for them, working on the bow for intonation, stuff that isn't to do with a gig that's coming up, stuff to actually, progress on the instrument rather than prepare for a gig. So yeah, if I'm lucky, around about an hour a day, I'd say, or an hour every other day on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's you? And in terms of getting better, what does that look like today, and how has it changed over the last, 20 years or so?
Well, the double bass has definitely come on a lot. I feel a lot more confident on that in terms of finding all the notes, starting to get into thumb position. So I actually seeing, and it's interesting, getting better. I've seen, it's like when you start learning an instrument, you see the progression really quickly. But when you get to a certain level, like with the electric bass, I actually don't see any progression anymore. Which is like, and what I mean by that is, I think you have to put in a lot of work when you get to a certain higher level on an instrument to make those incremental steps. And unfortunately, I just don't have the time at the moment to. It's on my list to do, but to get to that next step on electric bass. So, that's what progression is looking like at the moment. Definitely seeing a lot going forward with the double bass, but with electric bass, there's a massive to-do list on the double bass. I mean, the electric bass. Like, I need to get back into some slap bass stuff just to have that under my fingers, because I used to be really good at that, and now I can start to see, a few things that I haven't been working on, slip on the slap stuff because I haven't used it enough. Needs to get back into practicing with a metronome on the electric, things like that. There's a big to-do list but that's how, I don't know if it's the same with you. As you get older, I think the progression, I don't know, you see that to make the next step, really have to find that time, and it's hard to find that time.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I have fairly infrequent lessons with a teacher, and I had to go from weekly lessons to every other week because I was turning up to the lessons like, I haven't had time to go through it. I haven't done this, and I think I think a good teacher will be like, okay, so what have you done this week? So, well, I've done this, I've done that. I had a gig, the kids and stuff. He's all right. Okay, how many TV shows did you watch this week? I was like, well, I finished the Office. Right, okay. So you could have been practicing then. Yeah. So even if you've got it on, get your fucking guitar out and just do some whatever.
Yeah, something.
Like, have it in your hand and do something. If we're going through whatever it is, we're going through groups of fives. You can do 5-note scales whilst watching TV. Yeah.
I feel I always have that thing. I have the bit of the opposite problem. Like, I always have that thing when I'm watching anything, I feel so guilty. But I know what you mean. There is time, but it's just, there's so many things pulling you in so many directions. Like, keeping fit is one, even for mentally, is really important. Like, me and my wife trying to get to the gym every day or every other day. Those things are also quite high on the priority list now as well. So,
yes,
but yeah,
I can tell you now, almost knocking on mid-40s, going to the gym is. I don't know. I started doing it at the start of the year, and it just sort of dwindled off when it got to the start of the summer, and I'm now kind of saying, I've got to really look at my diary and think, where can I fit it in? If I finish teaching at 2:00 at school, there's an hour window between me finishing teaching at 2 and the kids getting home at 3.
Yeah, it's difficult.
You're gonna have to go.
It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it goes back to
I
what we
think
started with, is routine, isn't it? That's hard
Hmm.
having no routine as a freelancer.
I don't think it's hard. I think I personally make it hard so that I have an excuse not to do it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I will say to myself, oh yeah, but it's 2:00. I've done all day at school, or I've done a 6-hour fucking drive to Bristol and back. I can't be bothered. I'd
Well,
rather just sit on the sofa.
you definitely need to have you definitely need to have some time off. I think one trap that I've fallen into is you see all these fitness influencers or crazy people that are going ham and stuff all the time, but that's not reality. You do need some time off, and that's something I'm trying to work on at the moment. David Goggins is a very good example. I don't know if you've come across it.
Do you know, when I did my whole fitness kick last year, I did this thing called 75 Hard. Have you heard of that?
No.
So it's, do you know, I can't actually remember exactly what it was. It was it was like a mental, physical training program that you did for 75 days.
Wow.
You had to.
That sounds intense. I'm going to Google it now.
I think
wow, a tactical guide to winning the war with yourself. Okay, that's insane.
It was so you had to do 2 45-minute workouts. One of them had to be outside. You had to drink a gallon of water a day. You had to read 10 pages of a non-fiction book. You had to stick to a diet. And you had to take a photo of yourself and upload it as like part of your progress. So I did that for 75 days. And
gosh,
and do you know what? When I got to the end of it, I was like the routine that I was in was fucking brilliant.
That's what I think it's about, though. It's routine, and
I've now let it go to shit.
But at least you had that. So it's so impressive that you had that discipline to get to do that. That's really impressive. And it shows that it's in you. I'd love to try and do something like that. That sounds cool.
It was intense, and you know what? It was intense. And I do this thing. My wife always says it. She's like, "You are either fuck all or fucking obsessed."
And so I think that's a lot of musicians.
This switch.
Yeah, I think a lot of musicians are like that. Yeah,
I did it with chess as well. I started playing chess around lockdown, and I was just obsessed. My bookcase was just filled with chess books. I was taking lessons. I had YouTube channels that I was subscribing to, and I got pretty good.
Wow, I bet. It just shows you, doesn't it? God,
but after 3 years, it just sort of then just nosedived off.
It's
weird.
The hard part, though, and it's the same with music. It goes back to what I was trying to explain. You get to that level, you get to that maybe that 3-year mark or something, where you feel like you've got to a certain point, and then it's really difficult to make the next step. You get to this wall, don't you? Yeah.
But I remember early on when I was playing the plateaus that you would hit, and trying to struggle through them or push through them, or you get stuck in a rut. And I think the like you said, the way through it is right. You have to isolate whatever the issue is and think, right, then I'm just going to have to work on whatever that is. Yeah. And that could be just moving from a C chord to a D chord, or it could be, can I solo over these 6 changes convincingly and melodically?
Yeah, 100%. There was so I was doing this gig with Helena May last Tuesday, and she's written this new song. We only got it maybe a week before the gig to go through, and this is what I was mentioning, the slap thing. There's one bar of 16th slap kind of thing in between finger playing, and I was like, this is like this is insane, so I came up with something that was very close to it, and it was fine, everyone's happy. But now that's on my to-do list to have the metronome at some point, hopefully soon, over Christmas, get the metronome and go back to just doing 16ths really slowly until I've got that ability, and then to put in that sequencing of different thumbs and plucks in there, so all that versatility is back. And yeah, it's going to be that boring, like you were saying, that really boring process of spending an hour on that a day or something, or half an hour on that a day, just to get back to that. Great fun.
Get back to your technique that you used to be able to do in your 20s.
Exactly. But because there's not much call for slap bass, in a functioning musician's life, really, unless you're in a certain very niche kind of band. But yeah.
I mean, every now and again, somebody will throw like Beat It in the set list. It's like, oh shit, I've got to do that Van Halen solo. I haven't done that in a while. Oh man.
Yeah, I bet it requires certain techniques to do it as well,
Yeah, like he's just fucking. The guy was just on another level, but like I could probably blag my way through it, and any guitar player watching it who knows it would be like, he hasn't done that properly. He hasn't done that in a while. But yeah, it like tapping just comes in so infrequently that I just never really look at it.
Yeah, totally. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of today's musicians' value is in repertoire and ability of learning and memorizing songs quickly, and then just all the other things about being on time, turning up on time, and doing all those things, and being versatile. So whether you play a couple of instruments or things like that is going to be more important now, unfortunately, than being a specialist at something, which really is, I think, sad for the way the music industry is going. Apart from, unless you're in that completely different world of being a YouTube musician, that you don't gig, but you've specialized in doing, for example, tapping covers of every famous Beatles song or something. I don't know, what I mean? And then in that case, great. That's where the specialists are. But for being a musician making a living out of gigging, is like, it's all about repertoire and versatility of playing different instruments and being able to do BVs. Something I've been working on the last few years, because it's been a necessity to have gigs, to get certain gigs. I'm so glad over the last few years that I had to push myself to do that, because there's musicians that I play with that refuse to do it, and there's now been some gigs that I've been called up for because I can get through doing backing vocals and bass. It's not something I enjoy doing, but it's something at least I know now how to do. So the more things
really
you...
It's funny to say that, or to hear that, because I mean, when I started doing like supporting artist gigs, and like a guitar player doing backing vocals was essential. And when I came across other guitar players, like, oh no, I don't sing. I was like, mate, you're literally double, triple the amount of gigs you'll get. And it's not that, because everyone can sing a little bit, and if you're a musician, you should be able to pitch quite easily. It's just then learning how to sing in harmony.
That's my god, that's hard. When you get it, or when you got an idea of how to do it. At least, like, there's a guitarist who gave me a massive tip. He was like, Sam, just record your harmony over the track in Logic that you're trying to sing, and make it really loud, and then just listen to that on repeat in the car. That becomes then in your head the lead line, and that's what you sing. So things like that. When I started figuring those things, when I started like learning those things out, because still for me, and this is such a difficult thing being a bass player, I think as a guitarist or a pianist, you have harmony with you all the time. You're playing chords, you're playing everything. The only way we can do harmony is either like, playing chords up high, which does it. And you get some weird voicings on the bass, which is fun, or running arpeggios, which I'm doing all the time. But you never get to hear them together. So singing backing vocals for a bass player, I think, is very difficult unless you play piano or something at the same time. So I have to process them individually and then hear them as a whole, rather than be able to. I see guitarists are so jealous, like, oh yeah, I'll just take the fifth and the third, or like, I'm like, oh yeah, cool.
Do that. But I think playing bass and singing in general is difficult.
You've got independence on these two fingers, these all working separately, and then the voice. I think playing with a pick where you can just strum through all the strings, and not have to worry about individual strings and stuff, is a lot easier.
I did try it once, and I was like, okay, well, no, I'll leave it to Sting, because fucking
I don't know how he does that. It's crazy what he does.
Like another little feather in his bow, an already busy bow. But it's not an easy thing to do, man. Playing and singing.
Sam Weston's really good at it. Yeah. He's really good at it. But I know he's been shedding it for ages, like ages and ages. You know.
Yeah.
So
the other thing I was going to ask is, if you had to do everything again, is there anything you'd do differently?
Probably more private. I think it was. I've always regretted not going to university to study music, but now I'm starting to come to terms that it was probably a good thing. But definitely would have got more private lessons, I think, and sought and found those right people to get private lessons with earlier. Earlier stage. And maybe, like we were just talking about, like jump into singing a bit earlier as well, and maybe more ear training as well earlier. I think those would be the three things that, looking back, I would have changed. But going to university, doing a music tech degree has really been handy, you know. Every time I'm doing an originals project or anything, I'm the one who can jump on the mixing desk and do the whole sound as well, or build backing tracks, or run Ableton, or any of those things. Or now, you know, I'm mixing all the LDN features stuff, you know, or having that tech. So I you know, I wouldn't change too much, but just those things of finding more private lessons, with bigger, you know. I think I had one reason I didn't do that is because when I came to London, I had some lessons with people who completely, like, really good bass players, completely, like, were maybe a bit dodgy in terms of, like, seeing new blood and, like, ripping them off. So that put me off. But if I could have found the really good people to take lessons with, continue that. And then, like I said, more ear training and singing.
I mean, those are all things that we can still work on today. And, you know, ear training for me is something I always need to work on. But I listen to a lot of music, and I think we do. Like, what's that chord there? What's that? Is that going? Is that G? That's definitely a G. Where's he going? Is that up to B flat? Is that, what is that? Okay, and then try and figure it out. See how close you are. I mean, I think that's
funny.
Really cool.
It's funny for me because I didn't get any formal training. For me, if I've got the instrument in my hands and, like, I hear something, I can just play it. But for me to say, oh, that's a minor 6 going to this, to that, to that, you know, I have to visualize my fingers on the fretboard. It's so weird.
No, I do the same.
It's so strange.
Yeah, I mean, I think finding a teacher, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule to finding a good teacher, other than just visiting lots of different people and seeing who clicks with you, or see who you click with.
Totally. I need to do the effort of doing that.
I mean, would you consider now going and getting lessons today? Well, not today, but like next year. And
next year for sure. It's been thinking about on electric bass, actually. It's funny, I did have a really good teacher for double bass. He was actually a classical teacher, not jazz teacher, and then I tried to find some jazz teachers on double bass, and once again, exactly what you said, couldn't find anyone that I clicked with. Or there was a couple of people, but they lived years to get to them. You know, a couple of hours to travel to the. But and that's why I think some of these online courses I'm a massive fan of now, especially with the double bass, and it's given me the inspiration to maybe find an online course for the electric bass. I've always shunned away from them, thinking, oh, they're not going to be that good. But after the experience I've had with, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, learning a new instrument like double bass, I'm like, for sure. So 100%. It might be an online course though that I go for, which is, I thought I'd never hear myself saying that, because I've always been I think
I think the resources now online are just, I think they're so good that it's just difficult not to ignore them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think especially during lockdown as well. I mean, I had lessons with people that were like top LA session players because they were like on their ass with no gigs, like, oh, quick, jump on that. Yeah, I mean, I think the internet's just made everything a lot closer.
I had just before lockdown, I had a session with a lesson with Carol Kay, which was famous session bass player from in LA, and but yeah, it was really good, like 1 hour. But she didn't really impart any instrument knowledge on the instrument, but she gave me the resources, like, go and check this out, go and check this out, go and read this book, go and do that. And I think having that via the internet, just like getting someone's knowledge of, okay, these books are really good to read or something like that is also, it's great. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love learning. I love finding new stuff out and, oh shit, yeah, I could do that. Instead of coming over that, I could approach it from this way.
Yeah.
I'll throw that into my next gig and see if anyone notices.
Yeah. Well, that's the hard thing, though. I find that that's the thing that I find hard to how can I put this? Like, you learn something new and you're practicing something new. And then I think for me, it's I'll never try it out on a gig because I know you've got to, especially being a bass player, you've really got to hold it down on a gig and then trying something out. I feel like there's a little bit of freedom with that, with the double bass and jazz, because there's a lot of freedom. But when you're doing a pop gig or a function or a theatre show or whatever, it's, I really, really, really am like, Sam, I'm going to hold this down. I'm not going to mess about with this. Do you know what I mean? But that's also a very difficult thing.
Maybe the role of the responsibility of the bass player is greater than the role of the guitar player.
You have a lot more freedom. I swear to God. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Like there's and if a guitar player does something crazy out there, like, it can come off as really cool and experimental. But as a bass player, it's like you hear one note wrong, you hear that over anything else. I feel like even people who are Joe Bloggs in the audience, their heads just turns. What happened there?
What was that?
Yeah.
What did he drop?
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about playing the bass. It's just got to be solid. Yeah. So I'm very hesitant to ever try anything new while I'm playing gigs. Like, it's good to have that knowledge, though. Definitely.
Yeah. So you mentioned theatre work. Have you done much theatre pit work?
Not really. Not much. Like the Gareth Gates stuff was kind of like a touring theatre show that I depped on. That was all charted and stuff. It's something like 10 years ago, maybe. God, I can't remember now. I was really pushing to find out whether I would like it, and I was sitting in on a lot of shows, sat on, a lot of stuff in town, and started to meet all the players, and then realised after doing. So then I started getting into, amdrams, pantos, got into all of those things as a stepping stone. I was like, right, cool, let's see if I can get into all of this stuff. Quickly realised that it wasn't for me because of especially when you're doing 2-3 months run, which I end up doing. And I was like, I just can't play the same thing every night exactly, and not have any, like I was saying, being a bass player, your job is to hold it down and play everything perfectly, correctly, right? And even if that means play the song, as the bass line, but in a band context or a artist context, the song might be a little bit quicker if you're off click, or there might be a new breakdown section or something, and there's interaction. And I think that's what I love and that's why I love jazz as well. There's always the interaction. I love also when someone takes a solo, helping them build the solo. When you're in musical theatre land, it's like there's no surprises, there's no interaction, and I couldn't really deal with that. It might be definitely something that I pick up again, like, for sure. I do love the routine of like going to a show and it being every night and you have a routine and stuff like that. But the lack of musical communication is really difficult for me.
So I started doing this year, and I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a little bit older, but I'm like, do you know what? I really like rocking up at 6 o'clock. Show starts at 6:30. We're done by 10, and I'm home by 11.
It's great, right?
although the runs that I did were only a couple of weeks.
Cool.
Maybe if it was a couple of months, maybe that would start to really grind on me. But those short run shows.
Short run shows sound that's awesome.
Shows, say that right. I really liked it.
That's cool. I could definitely, feel like I could get into that, but doing like 3 months or so, that it just I couldn't. At the end of it, I was just I can't do this. I can't do this. So
I mean, that's fair enough. Maybe I would change. My opinion would change after 3 months, but I'm not playing that fucking song. But then when you do functions and wedding stuff, like I've got to do Sweet Caroline again. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't mind that too much. Like, I know what you mean. I have had that feeling, but for me, it's all about who's in the band. That's the main priority for the gigs that I try and choose or try and be a part of. And a lot of those musicians really are communicative, communicate when they're playing, like especially me and the drummer or whatever. Even if we're playing Sweet Caroline for the 100th time or whatever, there's a different approach, or we're not just switching off and playing it. There's interaction, and that for me as a bass player, as a musician, is like one of the main things. I grew up playing in bands, and having the interaction is so important. Like if the hi-hat's being played a certain different way, then I might change to playing a bit more staccato or do something, to interact with that. Still part of the song, like playing the bass line, but that's what's important to me. Like,
Yeah, I know, I agree. I do agree, but it's I don't know. Maybe doing it as a guitar player, there's actually less freedom because I've got to play the same thing. Whereas
possibly
as a rhythm unit, you could maybe change up. Like you said, you play it slightly staccato. You could maybe let it sit back a little bit. You could push. Whereas I'm totally governed by what you guys are doing.
Yeah, maybe. I think even if you're playing it exactly like the record, as long as there's that locking in, like I'm always so focused on locking in with the drummer and the rest of the band. I don't know, everyone's got their different thing that they really enjoy about when they're playing the same song every time. But for me, that freedom of that, whereas in the musical theatre land, I've seen a lot of people just switch off, and that is a bit depressing. Not saying that always happens. I've seen some bands, there's like, that's why I did the Gareth Gates little thing that he was doing, because it was kind of like a Frankie Valli with Gareth Gates kind of tour, and the MD for that, he very much is like keeps everyone switched on even though they're playing the same show for months. And there is some flexibility and stuff, and I'm hoping that will be more coming out soon, like with shows having a bit more flexibility with the drummer doing a bit of fills and stuff like that, so I know what you mean, but I don't know, locking in is hard, is an important point.
I agree, and I think there's playing in bands and playing live and getting out and gigging is still the best way that we can improve. I've like learning stuff at home, going through stuff, trying new shit. Can I get it into a gig? Can I get it into a set list? Will anyone notice? Depending on what it is, making sure that it's totally appropriate, but getting all that new stuff that you're learning. The goal for me is getting it from the practice room, getting it on stage and playing it. And if I get there and it doesn't work, it's like, right, well, I've got to go back and I've got to readjust it. I've got to see why it didn't work.
No, totally. No, I think I totally get what you're saying. I think for a bass player, it's having that practice that stuff, having that vocabulary, but then choosing when to use it. I think for a guitarist, there's definitely, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like having that vocabulary and being able to use it and apply it into solos and stuff is so important. And coming out with some new communication or language that everyone else can vibe off of. That's so important. Totally.
That was like almost a brand new thing for me, because I spent so many years gigging with tribute bands, and it was just learn the song as it is on the record, and there was never an MD. It was just you just play it as a band, and if there was a fuck up, then we all kind of came together and like what happened on that bit? Let's do it again. There was never anyone who said, right, okay, third chorus, end of the third chorus, you drop this, let's go back and do it again. And then when I had to start doing gigs where there is an MD and there is a conductor, that was like a huge fucking learning curve, because I'd never done it before.
Interesting. For me, it was the other way around.
I was so used to just making sure you're doing your own thing, listening to everybody else, knowing where you are, what part of the song are we in, what's coming up next, and learning it that way. Whereas having an actual physical person in front of you conducting you and even giving you cues, like we're coming in bar 78, 5, 6, 7, and we're like, that was just like that. That was a bigger learning curve than just doing the reading gigs, learning how to read.
Right, I get you. I see what you're saying.
Being conducted and listening and being almost orchestrated was like, oh, and everyone does it differently.
Yeah,
no one does it the same. Everybody does it slightly differently.
I love it when
some
there's
people
an MD, like when there's someone who's coming up with a concept, or I'm talking about more in like maybe the pop world or the or show bands or stuff like that, where someone has a concept and they're communicating that, and it pushes the show forward because it's different and everyone has to be aligned to their vision. I love doing that and supporting that. And I find it really difficult when there is a band who hasn't got a leader, of even if it's a rock band or something, and having to just have that communication, that long talk about how will we do it, or what happened there, or like no, let's just assign someone to sort it out. And whatever, even if they're right or wrong, they're going to make a decision. We can just, I like efficiency. I think that's the thing.
I mean, I think it's two different worlds and it's two different sets of skills.
Totally 100%.
And I think it's great to develop both, because you become a more rounded, hireable musician, if that's a word.
Yes, 100%. I like, the more you can do, the better. So
the more you earn.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Or the more you work.
yeah. Until you like sleep deprived, and then you're like, what am I doing? So listen, man, it was lovely to catch up and chat. Oh, thanks for having me on board, mate. Thanks, Tim. Cheers.
It was nothing but a pleasure. And
thanks, dude.
We will speak soon.
Yeah, hopefully on a gig soon, mate. Fantastic.
Yes. All right, nice one. Thanks, Sam.
Awesome. Bye.
Cheers.